Hey everyone, thank you for joining today. My name is Jim Brees, the Chief Marketing Officer here at GreenGrowth CPAs. And today I want to cover a topic that we get asked about a lot, is preparing for investors. So today's topic is investor preparedness for the cannabis industry. Before we hop in, I need to let you know that the information contained in this presentation is meant for guidance purposes only and not as professional legal or tax advice. And further, it does not give any personalized legal, tax, investment, or any business advice in general. So with that out of the way, let's hop right into today's agenda and talk about the topics that we're going to cover today. So first, we're going to go over the cannabis industry and give you some context, especially the California cannabis industry. And then we'll talk about raising capital. And once you figure out the avenue of raising capital, how to actually pitch your business to potential investors and then negotiating that deal. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's discuss the mindset and to have an understanding of the landscape that you'll be competing in as a cannabis entrepreneur. So first, it's imperative that you know that it will take a lot of money to create a successful cannabis business for a few reasons. Number one, it's a highly regulated industry, just like the liquor business, just like an airline company. And that means a lot of compliance-related issues that you will need to hire experienced professionals to manage for you, such as lawyers to handle the licensing and CPAs to handle your taxes, a security professional to make sure your security plan is up to snuff. So lots of things that you need to hire out for. And most businesses fail because they run out of cash, plain and simple. It's that simple. Why businesses lose, whether that's cash for payroll or to solve the marketing problems or to solve their legal issues, because without it, you have no oxygen. Cash is the oxygen of your business. And next, running a cannabis business, especially a dispensary, is incredibly hard. It's a daily operation, day in and day out. You're running a public-facing pharmacy that is helping patients and legal adults learn and obtain their cannabis. And it takes a high level of skill and tolerance to work with the public day in and day out. You know, it's an 8 to 12, maybe even 18 hours a day that you have to make sure your operation is running smoothly. And another point we need to stress is that you can't do this all yourself. You need to build a team to help maintain and operate the main functions of your business, especially the ones that you're not good at or the ones that you don't like to do. So people you need to hire out for are human resources to do the hiring and the firing and the compensation schedules, the finance and accounting people, the technology people, whether that's an outside vendor or someone internally, legal counsel, people to purchase products and do QA on your products, daily operations, and any other position that you don't want to fulfill on. You need to surround yourself with smart and trusted advisors as well that will help you make up your board of directors once you get that far in establishing your company. And I highly suggest that you start now, because building a network doesn't happen overnight. It takes time to build that trust and let people into your inner circle. And lastly, drug crimes are the new financial crimes. Cannabis is legal where you're operating more than likely, and so kinks in the compliance will be your downfall. You're going to get in trouble not for having cannabis, but for not paying your taxes correctly on cannabis, or for evading taxes, or all the other things that come along with the financial crimes. And that's why it's very, very hard, and when many businesses will fail in this space. Now, understanding the cannabis market at a 30,000-foot look here. Most specifically, the Los Angeles and California cannabis market a little bit deeper. So California is the biggest legal market in the world, and Los Angeles is the epicenter, boasting almost 10 million potential patients and a very accepting cannabis culture. But don't forget, there is a huge black market out there, and it's not going anywhere fast. But you did see, Weed Maps is pulling off these illegal dispensaries, and that will have a positive impact on the legal shops, but we'll see how that all shakes out over time. And even 5 years into legal cannabis, Colorado is still dealing with a proliferating black market. So to build on that, the BCC, or the Bureau of Cannabis Control, is way understaffed. 145 of 219 positions are unfilled. And one last point is that bad actors are slippery in this space. Getting busted is built into their business plan, which makes it very difficult to beat them. They know they're going to get busted, and that's an expense, or they know that they have to move shops every 6 weeks. So that's something you have to compete up against. And currently in Los Angeles, there's about 182 dispensary licenses and about 900 of them in California overall. And that is increasing every month. In LA, there will be about 400 dispensaries in 12 to 24 months. So yes, a dispensary is relatively scarce now, but what about in 7 years? What about when Rite Aid and CVS start to become licensed cannabis businesses? How will that affect the valuations of a cannabis business? More than likely, it will start to take things down in value because they're not so rare anymore. And we believe that there will be a huge run-up in the amount of cannabis businesses and then an inevitable collapse that will happen just like the 90s tech bubble. And this collapse will then lead to a consolidation of the licenses and of the businesses into the hands of the smart operators who know how to survive in competitive landscapes. So, if you want to survive, you pretty much have only two things to lean on: brand and excellent operations that creates an amazing customer experience. Now with brand, let's build on that, okay? You want people to ask for your shop, product, or service by name. You want someone to say ABC Cannabis Shop instead of just Cannabis Shop, or ABC Vape Pen, not just vapes, or ABC Delivery Service and not just cannabis delivery. Because once Alexa, Siri, Google Home, those kind of voice interactive devices start to dominate how we get our information, having a brand that people know will be the most valuable asset that any business can have. Because if you don't, you'll be at the mercy of the platform, which is like the toll booth, and the words like dispensary or vape pen are going to be very, very expensive. Amazon and Google are not dumb. They know that they'll be able to get a premium for this, so make sure you start to build a brand that people ask for by name. So now that you have a little bit of context around the cannabis industry in the California market, let's dive into aspects of raising capital for your cannabis business. And let's look at this from a 30,000 foot perspective of the entire process. So it's a long and tiring process, as you know, to put on the capital raising roadshow. So be prepared to be focused solely on this until it's complete. It's very hard for you to split this up, so make sure you're dedicating one person to just going at this. The CEO for the next 16 to 20 weeks, this is all you focus on, and crush it, get your money, and then don't clap for yourself too much once you actually raise this capital, because raising capital is just one checkbox. It's just one step in the entire scheme of building a business and building value. And yes, it's a gate, but the execution of your plans, finding product market fit, and creating value is the most important aspects of the business. And when you get the money, the clock starts ticking. So don't let too much time pass too quickly before you get down to work and start crushing on that business and making that value and creating that value. And when you take money from investors at any level, it's like a marriage, but with much, much tougher contracts and more strict controls for your actions. You're attached to these people nearly for life, or until you sell your business, or you buy them out, or your business eventually fails, which we don't want you to fail. So hopefully you sell and exit, or you buy these people out, or you just operate forever and they are just a business partner for a long, long time. But one thing you really need to understand is that investors are betting on the jockey and not the horse. And this means that they're betting on you and your team to figure out the best way to execute your plans. They're investing in a relationship because, to be quite honest, opening up a cannabis dispensary or a vape pen company is not that novel of an idea. It's the sexy thing. It's the cool thing to do right now. So one piece of advice is to be honest with what you don't know and ask for help from your investors when you need it, because they're vested in your success and you already got the check from them. So there's no need to worry about, putting up a smoke and mirror show. Don't be worried about scaring them off. Further, don't let pride hold you back from success and be open to feedback. You may actually learn a thing or two. You don't know everything. Go in there with that mentality that you don't know everything, and you're going to learn a lot and build a much more valuable company. Now, it's also important to know that institutional or sophisticated investors, no matter how sophisticated they are guessing when placing money, right? Investors don't know how it's going to all play out, but they know that they're making bets, and they're making many bets. And they know that just one home run will pay off for 47 strikeouts that go to zero. 47 businesses are going to fail, but that one pays for everything and more. And lastly, don't think that you're their only option to get into the industry. Investors and people that have money have many, many options to get exposure to the cannabis industry, including investing in companies just like yours, into stocks of larger companies, or even contributing to larger funds that place the bets for them. So stay humble and and stay aware that you're not the only option they have to placing their money. And knowing that there are many options, you should really take time to consider what makes you special as a cannabis business. Ask yourself, what leverage do you have in the conversation with investors that makes you desirable? Is it the experience and education you have in the industry? Is it, that you have traction on a small scale and you're ready to go big? Or maybe that you have influence in your community, and once you open up your dispensary and launch, you have a built-in user base. Or maybe that you're putting in some of your own cash, so you have vested financial interest to not let this fail, and you're going to make big things happen. So consider, what is your point of difference? What makes you special, and why would someone want to invest in you? Next, let's talk about the types of investments. So there's 5-6 major types of investments. We'll cover 5 of them here, but let's go and just dive right into them, okay? So you have self-funding, where you put your liquid cash into your business, you borrow out of your 401k, you borrow against your home value, or you sell your high-value assets that you can then put money into your business. Or you go to an F&F, or what we call a friends and family round, and that's where you take cash or investments from your close friends or family members. Then you have angel investors, and these are usually the $100,000 to $500,000 rounds that come from it could come from friends and family, but it's usually from wealthy professionals such as doctors, lawyers, or even generational wealth families, pivotal families in your community that have money and want to get exposure to the industry. And then you have crowdfunding. It's not very popular in the cannabis industry, but it's a potential option. You could go out there and explore the legalities around it, but I've not seen, in my personal experience, any crowdfunding deals come across my table that have closed successfully. And then you have PE, which is private equity, or VC, which is venture capital money. And this is more common as we progress through the phases of the cannabis industry. And this is where really high growth businesses need to look for their capital. This is usually people placing capital for other people. And this is where you get those big rounds, $1, $5, $20 million investments in cannabis businesses. Let's just look at the traditional fundraising journey of a cannabis business. So it's highly recommended that you self-fund to start out, but if you can't, then it's time to look elsewhere. So first is friends and family, and these are usually smaller, easier to close rounds, and the terms should be favorable and simple for them to get in to the next round. Then you have your Series A, which should be hopefully from somebody local who understands the context of your local cannabis market. Not all markets are the same, so if you have some built-in knowledge from your investors, that's great. It makes things a little bit easier to deal with. And these should be relatively easy as well, especially if you have some traction in your business. And at this stage, valuation is not everything. You also need to see what smart money you are aligning yourself with, and we'll get more into what smart money versus dumb money is a little bit later into this presentation. Then you have Series B, which is usually some of the hardest money to raise, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of patience. It's hard because investors will continue to ask, why are you not cash flow positive yet? And it doesn't take a hero to lose money every month. And once you get funding, that's why I told you don't clap for yourself, because if you get Series A, say it's $1.5 million, and you start losing money every month, it's not that hard to lose money every month. You need to learn how to create value. But it takes a savvy investor to turn cash into long-term value, or to turn cash into more cash. Then you finally have your Series C and beyond, Series C, D, E, maybe even F, but I wouldn't see many businesses getting out that far unless the competition is so fierce where you just need to put the gasoline on. These are like the Uber versus Lyft kind of journeys. And this is all about traction and product market fit. And usually you're going to go out and raise because, again, there's super fierce competition between you and other brands in the space. And the person with the biggest war chest or the greatest deployment of capital will likely come out on top. That's one of those, mostly the capture of that journey. And then there's this other part, and a potential way to raise capital is called a line of credit, which is largely a non-dilutive capital that is collateralized by your assets, such as your accounts receivable. You may also see these called bridge loans. And those are kind of things that help you get from, between rounds, or we just need a little bit more money to build out and finish this product. We have clients, we have customers, we have money coming in, but we could get it done faster if we had an extra $255,000 $500,000 or whatever that amount is. Now, as you start to go on your fundraising journey, you have this thing called the cap table, which is the equity percentages in your company, and taking on capital can dilute the ownership of your business. And you need to understand that in the evolution of the cap table. So on the screen is an illustration that shows how the capitalization table or cap table changes over time in the different parts of your fundraising journey. And as you can see at the beginning or formation of your business, it starts out with you owning everything if you're a sole proprietor or a solopreneur. And as you build out your team, you need to split things in a reasonable way. Now, as you start to take on capital, you need to break off equity in most cases and most deals for outside investors if you're not self-funding your business. And with each successive round of raising capital or hiring new key team members, you continue to get diluted down and own less and less equity than when you started this business. It's important to know that you won't always have a huge chunk of your business, or maybe you will, but you give up equity in exchange for capital that helps you make your company more valuable, helps you go faster and build that value. While your percentage may go down in ownership, your total value could and should increase over time. So if you have 100% of a $1 million business or 10% of a $100 million business, you now have command of $10 million in equity versus $1 million when you had this at 100%. So you need to understand that it's not all about just owning the whole thing, but look at the total value of ownership that you have. Now next, let's understand the financials of this transaction. So before you go taking on capital, you need to run the numbers to see if you really like the position that you're putting yourself in by taking on outside capital. You need to do a financial analysis and produce pro forma financial statements, which will help you quantify how much capital you actually need and how you will use those funds. And it also helps you answer the question, does this even make financial sense to take on capital? Because some businesses raise too much money and end up giving away too big of a chunk of the business only to lose their motivation for growing the company. Now, once you know more about the financial nuts and bolts of the capital raise, then you need to look at your potential exit and what that can bring for you and what you can really get and expect to get if you were to sell your company. So in the dispensary market and cannabis industry as a whole, we're seeing the multiples land anywhere from 2 to 12x, and that's a huge range, but more towards that 3x for dispensaries, we'll say. But note, as more and more dispensaries come and open up every month, this will eventually drive multiples down, or will keep them towards that lower part of the range that we have given here. These multiples are typically based on net income instead of gross income because of the extreme tax burdens that cannabis businesses have. So if you don't have a good 280E mitigation strategy, then you will surely see a lower value compared to someone who has gone on the offensive and found a tax strategy that works for their cannabis company. And so once you know the total exit value, you need to factor in your percentage at the exit. You're not going to always own the whole thing. So if you sell again the company for $180 million and you own 10%, you're not getting the whole $180 million. You're getting 18 million. So let's look at an example here. It doesn't have all of the things in there. This is just a very, very basic example. So say your business's gross revenue of 2.5 million. We'll say this is a dispensary, right? Bringing in $2.5 million a year. Your cost of goods sold is 1.5 million. So your gross revenue and margin is $1 million in gross revenue and a 40% margin. Say you have additional expenses and taxes of $725,000. Your net income is $275,000. $5,000, and assume that your multiple is at 4x because you're in a high growth market, you have a good brand. So the total business value is $1.1 million. Now, maybe you have an ownership of 51% because you wanted to stay a majority owner of the business. When you sell that business for $1.1 million and you find a buyer that's willing to pay that, you get $561,000 at the sale of that business. Now ask yourself, are you happy with that? Now understand you're probably pulling a wage or some kind of annual salary at the time of owning the business, but once you sell and you get that $561,000, are you happy with where you're putting yourself? And you may want to run this back of the envelope analysis to see, do I even want to be in this part of the industry? Do I want to be a dispensary owner? Or do I want to create a brand? Do I want to create a product? Or do I need to actually open up 7 stores to really hit the number that I want to hit? Which is an arbitrary number. You're going to pick that number. Just make sure you're kind of getting some guidance and some general understanding of where you will land once you actually sell this business and build it up. Now, let's talk about smart money versus dumb money. You may have heard the term smart money or dumb money, but I really want to explain what that is. So smart money is someone who brings you more than just cash. You need to ask yourself, if I take money from this person, what else can they offer or provide to me and my business other than just cash? So some examples include access to joint venture deals with other portfolio companies that they have access to, or professional services. Maybe they have legal services or tax services or buyers or anything else in the professional services. Can they offer mentoring, coaching, or wisdom and help you really navigate the treacherous waters of building a business? Or do they have access to other people? Maybe they have other markets they can bring you into, or other important business components that will help you grow faster and create a more robust business. Now, dumb money is someone who can just simply write you a check but provide little to nothing else, other than pretty much a headache when they keep asking you when they're going to get their return on the investment and all these questions and keep bothering you as a business owner. But dumb money can also be smart money if you know exactly how to execute at a high level. And that person, that dumb money that gives you the space to actually grow your business, you can just go execute. You're like, hey, thanks for the cash. Now I'll be back in 18 months and I'm going to crush it. I'll send you monthly reports or quarterly reports. That's how you turn dumb money into smart money. But again, it's a balance, but we suggest always going for smart money, especially in cannabis, because it's quite a kind of a cliquey industry and you need to kind of know someone to be your evangelist to get you into those inner circles, as well as help open up new markets for you and introduce you to the right people. I cannot tell you how important having a network is, especially in the cannabis space. When doors open on the first try, it creates such an easier process for you to grow your business and level up and get ahead of your competition. So now that you understand fundraising, and once you have your business plan, your pro formas, and your pitch deck, you now need to find some investors. And you can start by researching prior deals in the cannabis space and reaching out to those investors. I use Crunchbase. It's a great website. It's a great place to find the institutional deals and the details of those deals and the contact information of those investors. You can also go to meetups or get involved in your local cannabis community. Another idea is going to alumni associations if you went to university, or reach out to your existing networks. I mean, you can even reach out to your local church. Maybe they want to start a cannabis company or something along that end. You know, there's some people that have lots of money that go to church, so continue asking. Then you can look into angel networks, things like angellist.com, to find potential cannabis investors. And I've also seen a few investors at LeafWire, which is leafwire.com. And you can start to prospect and make connections on LinkedIn, and then produce content around the capital raising journey. Social media is important. We all have that media part. You talk. You put the media, you put the pictures out, but be social, talk, interact, leave your 2 cents out there and interact and build community within your social channels. Because even reaching out to connections directly and asking if they want to see your abbreviated pitch deck is a potential way to engage in potential investors. And lastly, one type of deal that I've been seeing a lot more come across my desk is joint venture deals. And this is where an existing dispensary owner, a grower, or a manufacturer would invest in your new business because they have some type of synergies between the two operations. Now, this is quite a creative deal because this can also give you access to their licenses, their operations knowledge, their real estate, and their working capital and their cash flow. I really like this one, and I highly suggest you can hit up the weedmaps.com and start calling out to those manufacturers, those brands that are on there, and see if they're willing to partner with you. You just need to go hard and hit everyone and anyone up. You never know where that first check will come from, where you'll find that lead investor, and it may come from the most unlikely meeting at a happy hour, at a wedding, or even on a train back from your day job. Just always be asking, always be fundraising. And one thing you see often in this industry, in the stage of the cannabis industry that it's in, is predatory financing or investing, which is where more sophisticated investors take advantage of desperate startup founders. And while most of these tactics are not explicitly illegal, they can surely screw you over in the long term, so you need to keep your eyes open for these tactics being used against you. First is big fees for negotiating and closing deals. There are some people out there that want to take a huge fee just to make introductions conditions for you to start setting up these deals, which is not a bad thing to have someone do that, but you need to make sure that you quantify and put a cap to the fees before you start to go around this journey and using an agent to help set up these deals for you. You may also see, if you're taking on debt, that there's penalties for paying off debt early or selling your company before a certain time. If you take on debt financing, you should make sure that you have the freedom to pay it off early with no penalties, and also make sure you're not subject to any egregious lockup periods of the company. Then you'll also see sometimes inflated interest rates. Okay, so another aspect of debt financing, as you know, is interest. If someone is loaning you cash at a crazy interest rate, practically called loan sharking, then turn around and run the other way. Don't work with people that are offering you money at 17% interest or 24% interest. Don't do that. You will kill your business. You will never be able to pay off your debt service. It just won't happen. It'll tank the business. Another one you see is steering and targeting. And you'll see this sometime with agents, money agents that are trying to steer you into a deal, or they may be targeting you with options that don't make financial sense for you or the business you're trying to operate. So don't work with that person. Again, you become married to these investors, and you don't want to work with someone who doesn't have your best interest as their chief consideration, right? Because if you want to raise money later for a subsequent business or for another round, wouldn't it be nice to work with the same agent who's fair? But if they're being a total jerk and trying to screw you over, you're not going to work with them. So anyone that's trying to steer or target particular options to you, just try to avoid that. Another thing around interest rates is about these adjustable interest rates that explode, sometimes for no reason, or there's these triggers that just make them explode. So look at your deal terms and see if there's anything around adjustable interest rate, what triggers the adjustment, and what level those actually go to. If it's something crazy high, then negotiate them down or negotiate them fully out of the deal. Another one you'll see is personal guarantees. If someone is making you personally guarantee a loan with an asset like your house, they do this to protect themselves. Totally understandable. But at this point, you're making a huge bet on your life and all of your assets. So make sure you're very confident that you can pull this off. Because if you don't just lose your business, you also lose your house. It could affect your personal relationships. It could affect a lot of things. So make sure that your personal guarantee is not too high, and you can even potentially just negotiate it out. Not everything has to be personally guaranteed. You'll see this more with traditional loans, but also in other loans too. One thing that people don't understand is mandatory arbitration clauses. So don't let someone take your power away to use the full extent of the legal system against them. If someone is forcing you into arbitration and forcing this onto you with no ability to sue them, then you will lose access to a lot of legal tools to protect you, your business, and your personal property. So if there's mandatory arbitration clause, get that negotiated out of the deal. And then lastly, and you'll see this a lot in the social equity space, is these hush deals or side deals in general. So in the social equity space, you sometimes see investors paper a really good deal or deal that looks good to the DCR, which is the Department of Cannabis Regulations. It's in Los Angeles. But then they insist you sign something else on other paperwork to manipulate the numbers. Things that could be like profit distribution, right? You may be owning 51% of the company, but they only give you 2% of the profits. Now, what's up with that? So, hey, you may not be taking a very pivotal role in the company. You're just going to be the social equity applicant, but really understand what you're signing up for when you do these. And this is different than an amendment and could really hurt you financially if you don't know what you're signing, okay? It's really important. So always consult a lawyer before making or signing any deals. And in Los Angeles, if you're a social equity applicant and the DCR finds out about these deals, who knows what could happen? They may pull your license because you're manipulating the actual social equity application laws and regulations just to open up a cannabis company, and that will be frowned upon. Next, let's talk about pitching your cannabis business. So once you found potential investors, your job now is to pitch them your business, pitch them your idea, and the investment opportunity that is at their hands right here. Now, the fundraising process, as I said earlier, is quite long, but if you prepare, it could be about 4 to 5 months from the prep to closing the round. So here are some basics on how to prepare for your pitch. So with the business, you need to know what makes you unique in the cannabis industry. Then you need to find comparables, which are other deals in other competitors, and be able to speak to the competition in relevant exits in your vertical in the cannabis industry. So when they ask you questions about this, you know how to answer those questions. Then you need to know the industry that you're in and the vertical specifically, knowing the key factors of success in your vertical, and understand the target market in great detail. Then you want to understand the numbers and be able to speak with confidence around the metrics of your business, the financials around the operation, what the cash burn is that you'll have, and what it will be used on. Then you need to do a strengths and weaknesses analysis and know what makes your team competent, but also be transparent about what you're going to need help with. That could be, hey, we're great product people. We're great at manufacturing, but we really need help with a sales team. And if you find an investor that is like, yo, I am great at sales, I can connect you with the right network, then it sounds like a good marriage at that point. Then you need to have strategy and think this one through in great detail and be able to articulate it with practical terms and specific strategies for execution. Then the audience. You need to know why you are pitching this person exactly. Are there synergies between their other investments, or do you think this would be a smart way to expose them to the cannabis industry, right? Having a reason of why should they invest in you. And then needs. So know exactly the amount of money when you do your pro formas and your financial analysis, know what that cash requisite is and how you're going to actually use it, because they will ask you about this if they like your general idea. And sometimes they're not just going to ask high level, they're going to dig down into the details. So make sure you understand the nuts and bolts of the financial machine of your business. And lastly, practice. Spend lots of time practicing and tightening up your pitch and making it land with high force. Make sure that it's impactful and practice over and over and over again. So on the screen, you're going to see a simplified timeline of fundraising. It pertains mostly to institutional capital raises. So 4 weeks before you actually launch your capital raise and go into the journey of it all, you want to prep your deck, get your executive summary together, your pro formas, and assemble your target list of people that you're going to go after for investments. And then after you get that all together, 2 weeks before you actually do the kickoff is practice. What I said earlier, practice. And then launch your attack in parallel and not in serial. Send out your teaser and start to book meetings with these people, these potential investors. And then the first few weeks, you're doing your first meetings with these people, these potential investors. And then you go into the second meetings, meeting with more partners and more decision makers throughout the process. Then that second, third month, you're going to go through the early due diligence of your business. And then you'll do even more partner meetings. And hopefully at, the 2.5 month mark, you come up with a term sheet. This is just a high level understanding of what the basic deal components are. And then that third month, that fourth month, you really get into the documents, the lawyers start to take over, and you actually close your round of funding. And then at the end of that fourth, fifth month, you finally get to sleep for one night because you really got to get back into it and really go back and crush it and deploy that capital and build a business that's generating lots of value. Now let's also cover some miscellaneous tips around fundraising. So again, be prepared, practice your little heart out so that you get your pitch tight and it's really impactful and you can pitch on a moment's notice. Also, time kills all deals, so create urgency when meeting with investors. Don't just say, hey, call me whenever. Don't keep them on ice and don't let them think that they can just take their merry old time. You need to keep the deal fresh with them. They have options and they want to feed off of your excitement. Next, get solid advisors who can introduce you to investors and guide you through the process. It's tough to do this alone, and having someone by your side will give you extra confidence when you're in the room, whether that's your COO, your co-founder. Again, it could be an agent, it could be an advisor, it could be anybody. Next, you want to search for investors locally first. I brought this up earlier in this video. This makes it easier to meet with them in person because travel costs will be low. It's not always cheap to raise capital, especially if you're going on a national campaign. But also, in the cannabis industry, this is a local endeavor. And at a minimum, it's a state-by-state game until cannabis is rescheduled and then you can cross state lines with cannabis. So someone that has a local understanding like, hey, the industry is new in Illinois, in Chicago, and we know that there's not the most access to sophisticated operators. So we know that you're going to have a little bit of friction in the beginning finding a GM, which is actually one of your key components. And we know that you may have to pay a premium to relocate somebody. That's an understood thing if you're looking and working with someone in that local area. Next, go for the no as fast as you can. Don't let investors string you along saying maybe or that they need to talk to more people. No. We don't do that around here, okay? Put pressure on them and show that you're serious about your time and about your business. You run the conversation until you get to that collaboration point. And this leads me to my next point. Rejection is part of the process. Once you get to that no, don't let it crush your confidence. It means you can go to the next partner. If you're doing this right, you're talking to 100 or 500 people, and most of them will tell you no. So grow some thick skin and keep moving forward. Keep it moving. I know I said get some solid advisors, but I will say try not to use an agent, which is someone who takes a percent of the money that you raise in lieu of making the introductions. If you can find a trusted advisor or a mentor that can do this for you, it's even better, because this is different than an advisor. And an agent will pressure you to take deals, or may pressure you to take deals that are not in your best interest, just so that they can make that commission. So be cognitive of who's helping you make those introductions and what their vested interests are. And lastly, get a lawyer to review and make sense of all the terms and deal language within your capital raise, those contracts you're going to be getting. Because your job is to get investors to the point of yes, and then you hand the deal off and hash that out with the lawyers. The lawyers will take care of that, all that stuff before you sign on the dotted line. So if you sign a deal without fully understanding every clause, you may be shooting yourself in the foot before the race actually starts. And it may really inhibit your ability to raise money in subsequent rounds just because you don't understand particular clauses or terms. Or it may make the deal very, very unsexy for your Series A or for your Series B investors. So be smart, pay those extra 15 hours for a lawyer to negotiate the deal or to understand these amendments that these investors are asking you to sign. It's a long-term investment. It may sound like a lot now to pay an extra $15,000 to negotiate this deal, but it could save you so much headache and give you access to so much value later on in your business's life cycle. So preparing your business plan and your pitch deck. So when you meet with investors, you will need to create a business plan and a pitch deck. And I don't want to speak too much about it here. So instead, you should review the video, which is on the screen right now, and you'll find every detail about what to include in the pitch deck and how to make it interesting and what to avoid when making a pitch deck. And the shorter the deck, the better. Don't create an entire book with every detail. No one's going to read it. Even a short deck of 10 slides, no one's going to read it. They get 10 of these a day, 30 of these a day. They peruse through them. They say, oh, this one looks interesting. And it could be for any number of reasons. They could like the way it's laid out. They could like the colors you use. They could say, oh, hey, this person went to UCLA. I went to UCLA. I want to help this person out. There's no rhyme or reason why people always pick decks and pick people to get meetings with. So just keep it short. Have these impactful things. But the potential slides you want to include in your deck are the intro slide, the problem that you're solving for, what your solution to that problem is, your business model, the market overview, your marketing and selling techniques and tactics and go-to-market strategy, the cost and pricing model, competition, the team behind your business, your social impact if you have one, your competitive advantage or your secret sauce, a conclusion, and an appendix if needed. And this is kind of where you put those more detailed financials and all the things that may help you answer questions and be supporting evidence when you answer questions. And one thing I want to talk about is how to make your business stand out, more specifically for dispensaries. So it's not a very novel idea to open up a cannabis dispensary, and understand that it's a local business. People are not going to travel far to get product. And if they do now, they won't in the future, because there are going to be so many dispensaries. I would beg to say that in 10, 15 years, you're going to see just as many dispensaries as you do pharmacies, right? There's a CVS or a Walgreens or a Rite Aid on every corner in every city. And again, they might become your competition. So in this being a local business, it does offer you the opportunity to franchise, which is a good thing, and expand your footprint to other cities. So here are some ideas to stand out from your local competition. Education and classes. Nancy Reagan did a great job of scaring people away from cannabis, especially the older demographic, or what is now older demographic. So there's going to be a ton of newbies jumping into the market. So use education as your spearhead to create trust between your brand and your customers. And once you do that, you can win customers for life. This could be doing workshops on a Saturday or workshops every day at lunchtime. It could be a smoke and learn kind of thing. It could be anything. Then think about manufacturing your own brand of products. You've been to Walmart Walmarts, you've been to Target, they all have their own in-house brands that compete against the large national brands or multinational brands. So if you're selling cartridges of the biggest brands out there, why not sell your own brands and recapture some of that value? Also, you could create an event space for your brand. Maybe you notice that, hey, once we hit 8 p.m., there is just no traffic coming in here. We capture 92% of our revenue from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Let's make this an event space from 8 p.m. to 1 a.m. and recapture some other value, whether that's cannabis related, music related, or anything else related. You could also make it a community center. Maybe you find a way to get a larger piece of property and have a built-in community center where people can come in, they access resources that are not readily available in every household, and they come into the community center to use those resources. Another one I thought was pretty interesting is have a drop-off and pickup service just like casinos. If you see casinos, they have a bus or they have vehicles that swing around the county or the city, pick people up in critical areas, and then take them to the casino. They spend all their money and they drive them home safely. What if you could do that and hit maybe all of the retirement homes or hit up all of the care facilities in your area, pick up all these people, bring them in, give them some education, sell them some product, and take them back to their home. There's a lot of ideas out there, so think, be creative. Now, after you pitch an investor and they say yes, the next step is to negotiating a deal for your company. So you should understand upfront that negotiating is an art. It's not a science, and it's okay to adjust your style to best fit who you're negotiating with. There is no one method that is best for every situation, okay? You have to be in the moment, know who you're negotiating with, and deploy tactics that will work in your favor in a mutually, win-win type of behavior for everyone involved. So let's run over a few items that are actually up for negotiation. Maybe you say, hey, I thought I'd just get money and that's it. There are actually, and this is not a full list of all the things depending on the way you're structuring your deal, but here are some things that are up for negotiation. So the ownership equity and the valuation of the company that you're selling. So how much are you actually giving up and how much is the value of the company? It could be the amount of money invested by the investor, the revenue or the profit distribution of the company, who gets what, right? That doesn't always have to be based on the equity. It could be something different. The type of financing, is it going to be equity financing? Is it going to be debt financing? Voting rights, board seats. At some point, you're going to build a board of directors, and who is going to get a board seat and how many of those board seats are they going to get? The investor could also negotiate right of first refusal for the next round. So what that means is that if you're going to go, say they're funding your seed round and you want to go for a Series A, you have to bring the deal to them first and they have to refuse it before you can go and shop it around to other investment houses. Next, payback period. If you're taking on debt financing, what is the payback period? How long do you have to pay that back? Another one could be your job responsibilities or participation in the venture. You may be taking on very, very little of the business, but you're going to be maybe the brains behind the business and you're more of like the high-level thinker behind the business. And you may want to spell that out in your roles and responsibilities. That's just a small nuance you could put in there. Also, your claim to real estate. If real estate is included in your deal. So maybe you have to purchase a facility to run this business, and you want to make sure that you or the business is getting a piece of that action and it's not just the investment company buying that property and taking full title of that property. Now let's cover some negotiation basics. Now, the purpose of any negotiation should be to create a win-win for all parties involved. And it's okay to leave money on the table because your goal is to create a long-term business relationship. It is important that as you are negotiating certain terms and understand that you are setting precedents for future deals. So you need to really understand every aspect of the deal that you're negotiating right now. And to prepare for your negotiation, you should know where you want to end up before you start. That means know how much you want to raise, at what valuation, and every other term listed in the previous part of this video about what's actually up for negotiation. And if you're doing a deal that you're unfamiliar with, then research other deals in that space, in that vertical, before you start negotiating, because you want to sound smart. You don't want to go in there and ask for something egregious and they laugh you out of the room. And if possible, learn something about the person with whom you're negotiating with so that you can build common ground bond with them and build that rapport with them, because people negotiate with other people. This is not a mechanical process that computers do. So don't be scared to create that human connection with the person you're negotiating with. And also be prepared for the negotiation to be turned over to someone else once you reach a certain point, such as getting to a term sheet. I brought this up earlier in that timeline, but you're going to get to a term sheet and then the lawyers are going to come in and hammer out all the language and all that, what seems like a foreign language, to really come up with a full, complete contract. And then after that, you guys come together, you gals come together, and you sign on that deal. So some negotiating tools and techniques. When engaging in a negotiation, you should always start high, but be reasonable. This will give you room to quote unquote give up things and make the other party feel like they've won something. It's a little bit of a psychology play, but if done correctly, you will land at or near your intended targets. Next, understand the opposing party's position so you can logically and emotionally argue against it. You need to ask yourself and find proper reasoning behind why you should actually get something that potentially that investor or that other person has never given in other deals, right? You may be asking for something way off base and you don't want to get laughed out of the room, but if you have a good logical and emotional reason of asking for it, it increases your chances of actually getting that thing. Next, don't be so stiff in negotiating. It's okay to use humor to break tense moments. Be a real person. People want to work with people that make them feel good, and humor can be that emotional bridge that ties the two parties together. I would also suggest you use shared language so that you seem similar to them. There's a lot of words and terms in raising capital, especially in venture capital, that you need to know because they will be dropped and said in the room, and you don't want to look like an idiot in that room. And people really want to work with others that are similar to them in as many aspects as possible. So take the time to learn the lingo of the industry and of your financials so that you can create more common ground with the person you're negotiating with. Next, don't bluff because your card will get pulled. This is simple. Don't do it. You'll look so stupid and word will get around, because if you bluff and they call you out, it will destroy that deal and potentially your credibility in the entire space. And to build on this, negotiate with a positive attitude and in good faith. If the other party senses that you're trying to pull one over on them, it will sour negotiations and potentially kill your deal dead in the tracks. Do not bluff. Do not try to be negative. Don't negotiate in bad faith. Don't try to trick someone. It will kill the deal. Another tip is to ask questions during the negotiation to get as much color and context to what the other party is thinking and where they stand at on deal points that you haven't agreed upon yet. Ask questions. You need to learn, and that's part of being humble along this journey. To build on this, don't negotiate for the other side. Try to shoot your shot and see what happens. Don't just come in low and try something and try to make this deal a no-brainer from the get-go. Make sure you actually negotiate and show that you are confident in your abilities and in your business. And lastly, have patience. These deals can be emotionally taxing and emotionally intense. Think about it. You're asking someone to believe in your idea and giving you millions of dollars to hopefully execute it properly and drive more value. That's a big sum of money. Millions of dollars is a lot of money, even hundreds of thousands of dollars, even $50,000. That could be, in the friends and family round, someone's entire life savings, and they're risking that on you. And they're not just going to give it away freely. So be cognizant of the context of the situation and approach it in an appropriate manner. All right, so we covered a lot of ground here, and hopefully this presentation and video was helpful for you. And I really appreciate you taking the time to sit and listen and absorb and understand all of this and get that value. So if you need help and want to get pro forma financials and business plans for your cannabis company, then please reach out to GreenGrowth CPAs by going to our website at greengrowthcpas.com or give us a call at 800-674-9050. We'd love to help you in this part of the process. This is the best part, the part that we can execute at the best at the highest level and make you walk in that room and give you that ability to walk in with confidence and negotiate with these investors. So again, go to our website at greengrowthcpas.com or give us a call at 800-674-9050. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.